Welcome to the Legendarium. We are, well, some of us are excited to be here today. Kenn, are you excited to be here today?
I'm excited to see Stephanie here today.
Stephanie, are you excited to be here today?
Yay!
She's canning that, folks. She's going to use that for the rest of this series. We are the Blue Team, and we are going to be discussing the next book in the Expanse series, Tiamat's Wrath, first half. My goodness, I'm excited.
But Stephanie, are you excited to see us?
Of course. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yes.
Yay.
I'm excited to be here.
There
Yay!
we go. There we go. There we go. Stephanie, thank you for. I feel like one of these days Stephanie's going to turn around and she's going to say, "You remember all of those books from the Expanse? You owe me." I'm afraid that's going to come around.
Todd already said I could pick the next book series that we're going to read. So,
she and Megan already have.
And I will gladly do it. With
she
you.
and Megan already have me paying my penance. So
I've heard, and I fully expect that I will be doing something similar, and I'm looking forward to it, and I will enjoy every minute
I will
of it.
say, minor spoiler alert for those who are interested. I'm not hating this series they're having me reading. They're having me read.
But that's not this series that we're reading.
No, series I really enjoy.
Okay, good. Well, as far as housekeeping, our regular stuff, engage with us on Discord, the kindest place on the internet. Check us out on Patreon. Check us out on the web. Check us out on YouTube. If you're listening to us, if you're watching us, then check us out on your favorite podcast and carry us with you everywhere you go, because we bring delight and joy, or at least Stephanie does.
aw, thank you.
You are welcome.
She is
I'm
a
trying to
joy.
do everything I can to make you happy to be here, because I know
I haven't
there's
even
a
gotten
piece
anything out
this.
of it. You think that I would have gotten a drink or something, like someone would have brought me something, knowing that I don't want to do this Well, not that I don't want to do the podcast, but
Would
You know
like
what? Next
drink?
time we'll arrange to have
like
dinner
I am
for
going
you.
to end up with like the biggest steak dinner by the end of this book series, just because I suffered through it all.
ground chuck steak. You betcha. We'll bring you one from. Looks like you like Wendy's, so we'll bring you a Wendy's pub burger on pretzel bun.
It's
Okay.
going to be grade R beef. Yeah.
That was
bring you-
never beef.
We'll bring you Carl's Jr. There you go.
Beef,
Okay.
Beef with a question mark.
So
Beef
now
that was
everybody's
never
saying,
beef.
will you please shut up about food and get into the book? So we are books. This is book 8.
Yeah.
Book 8. We're not going to say out of how many. Book 8. We have been exploring the Expanse now for quite some time. We're at that 30-year point. What happened in the last book? What do we remember, Kenn?
In the last
Because Kenn doesn't
book-
have a summary for us.
Well, I kind of do. I didn't write it down. So.
Kenn doesn't have a summary for us. He has Kenn's musings, which may be more fun than Kenn's summary.
I don't know. I mean, you can. Although the first line of my summary was also, or my recap was also going to be the first line of the book. Christian Arvasarala is dead.
Oh.
Pour one out. Pour a bulb out for Christian Arvasarala. I had to get it out of the way quickly so we can get Todd.
The queen is dead. Long live the king. Who's the king? We'll get there.
Oh, we all know, but she's dead just in time, or just in time to try to stop a madman from antagonizing the monsters at the end of the universe. Great, because here we are 4 years after the last book, where the Laconians come back. High Admiral Duarte and his band of Martian separatists come back, and they have leveled up, is what we called it. They are now massively OP,
nice.
as the gamers say.
Yeah.
And they're running roughshod and asserting dominance. And so 4 years later, here we are. They have successfully exerted dominance. And now everything, all of us, all the galaxy is Laconia.
Yes.
So, and
All hail Laconia.
yeah, exactly. And Jim Holden has been a prisoner for the last 4 years since we saw him get captured on Medina Station. And we've got our group of Rocinantes out there trying to organize a resistance, or trying to keep a resistance going.
And Amos has disappeared.
And Amos has disappeared.
Disappeared.
Yep. And the Rocinante is in mothballs on Freehold. And here we are. Now Duarte is trying to poke the bear, as it were, to see just how much they can negotiate, because he's all about the Kobayashi Maru unwinnable situation. Prisoners, what's the prisoner's dilemma gang called? Yeah. And to see if he can negotiate with the monsters that keep eating ships and stuff, and that goes predictably well.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Ahab, for deciding that he's going to chase his white whale, which is beating the people who beat the gate builders. Come on.
Yeah. So here we are. He's got a daughter who hates him. He's got a scientist who we predicted, I mean, it wasn't much of a prediction really, that would come back and be integral into the story. And so here she is, the proto-molecule scientist expert who is going out there telling people what a colossally bad idea it is to poke the bear. And they're not listening to her. We've got the biggest backup computer in the universe sitting in one of the new 1300 systems, and we've got angry proto monsters. What do we call them? I don't remember.
Proto-molecule killers.
Proto-molecule killers. We got them.
The PMKs.
Yeah, we got them eating ships, including the Tempest, the Typhoon, one of the three big Magnetar class battleships, and pour another bulb out, Medina Station.
Yeah.
Oh, how about
With
that?
How many people? So
many people, including Saba and a huge chunk of the Resistance. So now here we are. Oh, and we've got a catatonic Admiral Duarte, because he's all proto-moleculed. So when the big monsters at the end of the universe go out and shoot proto-molecule, they also short circuit our crazy man who is in charge. And so now we've got rule by committee, trying to Dave the situation and pretend that the president isn't actually dead. Right.
Dave the situation.
Yeah,
nice reference.
That takes you back.
That's a reference
that's
for
a
some
long
of us old
callback.
people.
Yeah.
Do you remember Dave?
Yes, I've seen Dave.
Okay, just checking. It was like a teenager thing, right?
I don't know when
she was
saw
probably
it.
like 5 at the time.
But I have seen it.
Good.
Just because movies came out before I was born doesn't mean I don't see them.
Nice.
Love it.
All right, so the Resistance has antimatter stolen from a Laconian supply ship that Bobby has decided she's going to use to destroy the Tempest, which is holding its thumb down on the entirety of Sol System. The Typhoon is now gone, and they've got one more Magnetar class ship called the Whirlwind. I think it's the Whirlwind at Laconia. So one's gone. Bobby's going to take another one out, and all of a sudden that tenuous control and stability of the universe is gone, and the ring gate is fair game. Like, let's see who can come and go. It's gonna be wild in the second half of this book.
You know, there's one thing that you didn't mention that I think is worth mentioning as part of this.
Okay.
Naomi is on Oberon.
Oh yeah, and
she is
Naomi makes it
separated.
to Oberon.
She is separated from everybody and cannot communicate to anyone. Mm-hmm. The sole voice of reason in the Resistance, and she's stuck.
Yeah. So
we've put our heroes in. It feels like one of those. It feels like one of those old Batman television shows. When at last we left our heroes, I mean, they're in the worst possible predicament they can be in.
Right.
And I'm not watching. I'm listening, and I'm like, I'm a little too excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a crazy, chaotic situation and throw in more chaos.
Oops.
That's where we're at.
So, on a scale of 1 to 4, as far as excitement, I think I'm excited enough for both of us, Stephanie. Does that help?
That's good.
Is that okay?
That's good.
Because I don't think you're excited enough for both of us.
I had a hard time getting through this book.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
How many minutes are we in?
10 minutes.
Okay,
so
I'm
whoever
going to
had
talk
10
now.
minutes.
Hey, it's been 10 minutes, and how many words have I said? Like 5. Okay, I'm going to talk now and tell you what I thought about the book.
My unscripted recaps are not a big hit, so go ahead.
Anyway, so for other reasons of my feelings towards the series as a whole, this book in particular has probably been the hardest for me to read. And I feel like this book is that slow book that all long series have, where all it is setting up for whatever big thing is going to happen in the next book. And that's kind of where I'm at with this one. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, no one's doing anything. Like, things are happening, but I don't feel like anything's really getting done. And because it's all just set up for whatever the big thing that's coming next is going to be. So there's a lot of things I'm like, I can't tell you. Like, I don't remember much about what happened because I don't feel like a lot did happen. I mean, a lot happened, but at the same time, I was kind of like, okay, yep, Naomi's still in the same spot. Bobby and Alex are still in the same spot. Yep, Jim's still in the same spot. Like, nothing's grown, nothing's moved forward, if that makes sense. Like, everything happened in like because we read up through the interlude right after chapter 24. And I feel like everything started happening like around chapter 22. And I was like, oh, well, now finally.
That is true.
The movement is starting to happen where you finally start seeing like, okay, this is the ending of where everyone needs to be. And so just before that, I'm like, yeah, this is slow. It was just slow paced. It was really slow paced for me.
I can see that.
Not to mention the fact that we spent a lot of time with new characters or with characters we haven't seen in a long time. We didn't get any Jim except in Teresa.
Well,
Teresa,
because he only had the two. He had the prelude or whatever, and then he had the interlude.
Yeah,
and
he was in the prologue and the interlude.
That's the word prologue.
And I bet he's going to be in the epilogue.
Yeah,
and that's probably all we're going to get for Jim.
And
I haven't looked.
And anything that Teresa comes and finds and her path crosses with him, then we'll get him in that. Otherwise, I mean, he's not a focal character in this book.
It's not his point of view.
Yeah,
We're not getting any
so
of his point of view.
It's all Bobby and Naomi, and that's it.
And Teresa and the doctor. What's her name?
LV.
LV. Yeah. Those, I think, are 4 points of view for this book.
So far.
There's been like Alex has been in there too.
And Bobby has. Yeah.
Right.
With so Kenn, what are your initial reactions? Are you feeling that this is slow paced, or are you feeling
a
that
lot
this
the same?
Is okay?
I feel like it was a little bit of setting chess pieces for the first half of this half,
Okay.
And it really wasn't. It was a lot of maneuvering. It's like we got to get these people to do a couple of things so that the actual substance can happen.
Yeah.
Meaning. Okay, we're 4 years in. We've got a resistance here, so we need Bobby to lead a raid against Laconian supply forces because that's what happens when you're in the underground. And we need to explain how Naomi is getting around, and we have to explain what Elvie is doing. How we're seeing the rest of the universe with Elvie. I think that the Emerald hard drive in the middle of the solar system is going to be interesting later. I did have some questions. I'll ask the questions later. But I wrote my questions and not a recap. Imagine that. But it did get interesting really fast when all of a sudden they decided to poke the bear, and now the bear is awake.
Now we have a nuclear star that's decided to explode. And it's going to wipe out everything.
Okay, I want to ask a question about that, though. So how much of this is by deliberate design and how much of it is by crazy random happenstance that things were set up as counter actions to whatever the humans were going to do? For example, this star that's barely on the edge of going supernova, just add energy, and the ring gate that happens to be cleverly placed at the North Pole so that the energy that's released is going to shoot through that gate and knock out 2 ring gates. And basically all these pieces are in place. Are these deliberate actions by the protomolecule eaters, or is this just humans stumbling into perfect situations?
I think LV, I was just actually reviewing this right before we came in, and LV makes a comment that she's talking to the admiral that's on her ship, and she says, "Hey, we are way out of our weight class. They built the biggest gun that can possibly be fired, and set it up so that it had a trigger on the doorknob, and we did it."
Yeah,
and as a result of that, caused all of this chaos that the loss of all of the ships inside the ring space, the changing of the ring space, so that now it's no longer that inky blackness, but now it's filled with kind of a grayness, and hey, we've got color here, but we have no ships, we have no repeaters, we have nothing that is human built, only the things that are proto-molecule built.
Yep.
And I think her contention is, I find it really interesting that they keep making this reference back to Bikini Atoll and the early nuclear experiments,
Right.
Because there, again, humankind was in a situation where they were playing with things that they didn't really understand, and we are now, in our lifetimes, we are cleaning up some of the residual. We're continuing to clean up the residuals from that. I think that's what she's worried, that we're doing it again.
Yeah.
Because human beings do that. When we find, I'm reminded of a Doctor Who episode where he's like, human beings, you find a place that can't exist and then you go in. And it's just like, yeah, that's kind of what we do. If we can make it into a stick, we will beat each other up with it. I'm excited about this book.
Question number 1 about every new technology. How can we weaponize it?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing too, for me at least, is early on when we're watching LV go through and explore all these systems, and I'm sitting there saying to myself, she has no clue what they're really doing right now. When they were saying, "Oh, turn on the what do they call the proto-molecule person, the seeker, the scout,
The catalyst?
Oh, the
the catalyst. Turn on the catalyst and let's see if there's anything going on here." And she's like, "No, but we find this. And she's like, all of these things are so interesting." And when the admiral says, "Yeah, no, we're going to let somebody else study this. We have other business to do." I'm thinking,
Yeah.
she didn't have a clue. She doesn't have a clue.
And it always happens. I mean, inevitably, it's like, here we have this golden opportunity to actually study technology far superior to our own and see if we can become better people for it. And the military arm of the dictatorial government says, the authoritarian government says,
hit it with a rock.
no, we're going to hit it with a rock. Yeah.
Yeah, hit it with a rock.
Pretty much. So
Thank you, Galaxy Quest.
yeah,
Interesting
poke
stuff.
it with a stick.
So, Stephanie, was there anything about this book that you said to yourself, I'm glad I'm reading this part? Okay, so Kenn.
Wow. Wow.
I thought you would have said something about the Thomas chapters.
Thomas chapters?
Isn't Timothy?
Timothy.
That's what I was
excuse me.
thinking. I was like, I liked when Teresa actually introduced the readers to Timothy. I'm going to spoiler. I'm going to tell you who Timothy is. Timothy is Amos. Yay,
Yes.
we found Amos.
Not really a spoiler.
It is for our listeners.
It is if they haven't read it already.
Well, I guess so, yeah.
But and it was one of those things that as soon as she left and she started walking through the woods, I'm like, she's found Amos. And that made me happy because I liked Amos. And I think it's funny how much he's learned from her,
Yeah.
unbeknownst to her, like that she has spilled everything. She's talked about her father and Jim and what's going on and anything that's happening in her compound. And like Amos knows it all. He just doesn't have a way to communicate it with anyone. So I was excited to see that because I figured he was around somewhere, even though everyone else is like, we don't know what's happened to him. But those were fun. I like Teresa's chapters. I think she is kind of like that breath of fresh air, getting someone just younger viewpoint. She's 14, so it's a little over dramatic for a teenage girl kind of thing. But yes.
Yeah.
Compared to everyone else's points of view that are so just steeped in being stressed over what's happening in the universe, that it's kind of nice just seeing this little girl that's just caught up in her own world. Because what else really is important? Like, what else matters at 14 other than your own world and
Yeah.
what boy kissed what girl. And
It's kind of interesting to see her navigate the controls of power too, because she's like, these jerks, I could have them kicked out of the program. I could have them reassigned to something else. I could go on these things too. No.
But she doesn't.
But
and
she
I
doesn't.
think that's the important thing is that even though she knows she has the power to do all of this, she doesn't.
Yeah.
You always get, oh, she thought this, but this is what came out of her mouth kind of thing. And I don't know. I think she's fun. So.
Cool. We get a real interesting cameo from somebody that we saw at the end of the last book. Right in the middle of the science fair, or science exposition, whatever it was that they call it,
The science fair, whatever.
It was a science fair, and I'm sure that somebody was there with how much salt can you put in a cookie before it becomes a disgusting thing, because that's always going to show up in a science fair. However many times it's been done, it's still going to show up.
Look at my baking soda volcano. Yeah, exactly.
And who do we see? We see the wife and daughter,
Elsa Singh, the monster.
the little monster.
Elsa the monster.
And she is a monster.
Well, her father was killed for the cause, so, give her a break.
And she probably doesn't know that yet.
I have a feeling her mom suspects.
I wonder if her mom, and I still think her mom is going to be a connection. That's that prediction. I'm still holding on to.
I think they've put people in place to help the resistance.
Yeah.
Down the road, you can see where Teresa might fall into it. You can see, Singh's wife. You can see a lot of. I mean, even the ship that Naomi has ended up on. Everyone knows she's on it now, and even like the security guy that covered for her when they did the pass through was like, "Oh, yeah, we all know who you are,
and we will protect you."
Yeah.
Well, she's not on a ship anymore. She's on a planet now.
Now she is.
Oh, that's right.
Now she is right at the end.
Yeah,
right at the end. Well, there's so from the standpoint of moving pieces, it very much is a. It's a lot like. I was thinking of another movie, but we won't talk about that one because that one's just not one anybody cares about. Yeah, everybody's going to wonder what movie is he talking about. You can put it in Discord and we'll tell you if you're right. This is a lot of movement. This is a lot of prep. What do you get from did you stop during? And I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Did you stop and think about level 2 and level 3 stuff during the middle of all of this reading? Or did you just say, oh, for crying out loud, get something going here?
Do you want to remind me what level 2 and level 3 is?
Level 2 is where we talk about some of the social ramifications. We look for civilization. How does this mirror civilization or our current civilization situation? And level 3 is really, how does this help me be a better person, a different human being?
Level 2 is politics, and level 3 is self-actualization.
Okay, I'll take that. That's a better way to say that. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had some really weird thoughts when I was reading this book, and none of them were about like the actual plot of the book. I don't know if this is a question I should ask now or if I should wait until we're done with the series.
I want to hear it.
Okay, I'll talk. We can talk about it now. One thing after they really introduced Teresa, I got thinking that in every book there is a child character of some sort. They're like, you always have some, and it's not necessarily a point of view from the child, but there's always this child character that we get introduced to. I mean, we have Avasarala's granddaughter that we got introduced to. I mean, like Singh's monster was a big one. We have Naomi's son. Like, there's always just been this child that something happens to. Clear back at like
maiming.
Yeah, I was like clear back in like book 2 and like I'm curious what it is about like when the authors have been writing these books, what has driven them to include. Because when you think about it, some of them really aren't that important to the overall storyline of the books.
Yeah.
But they're always there.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I don't know. Maybe we should look that up between now and the next time we do one of these.
Maybe they just like having children as set pieces. I don't know.
I don't know, but it was just one of those things that I was like, oh, I'm kind of curious as to what the author's concept of this was, or if they just it just kind of happenstance, like this is what drives it forward. Whether it's, I don't know, like children are our future. I don't know, but
Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Avasarala's granddaughter would probably say, "Yeah, whatever." What do you think, Kenn? What are some of the? Did you have any of the level 2, level 3, or any kind of bizarre off-topic thoughts along?
I feel like there are pieces set up. I mean, particularly with Oberon, which is, for all intents and purposes, is the second most successful non-Sol system encampment, because I mean, Oberon, like Laconia, has been set up nicely to sustain life, or to sustain a hybrid of Earth native life, and so Oberon has several settlements, has a thriving civilization. I'm interested to see how that plays with everything later. If they become important, if they become like an ally to Laconia. I have a feeling that ultimately this is going to boil down to a humans versus monster type thing, where the Laconians, instead of battling the rest of the solar system for supremacy or for legitimacy of their rule, is going to become all of the humans against this space-eating monster.
Yeah.
And I have questions as to what role Duarte will play in that, but I don't want to ask him yet.
Let's hold on to him. I know for part of the reason that I'm asking the question is because I did spend a little bit of time reflecting on the. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of that's kind of one of my things, right? Yeah. From a level 2 perspective, I've been and they spoon feed it, and so in some ways they're beating us over the head with it. But the issues of and the authors also made mention of it in Holden's interlude chapter. The idea of civilizations that are meant to reign for thousands of years. He says that's the problem with these 1,000-year Reichs. They go out in a blink of an eye. This one, Laconia, feels very much like Rome. It feels very much like, advanced civilization, lots of things put in place. They're trying to make sure that when people are brought in, you're being brought in to enjoy the fruits of being Roman citizens, right? And of course, we all know the Goths and the Visigoths and the Britons, everyone fought against it, because if you're going to conquer me and bring me in, it's totally different than inviting me to be in. And so I found myself wondering, as I was reading this, how many empires have followed the same kind of process. I don't want to suggest any immediate political connections to our current society.
Right.
But I'm looking at it and I'm saying to myself, there's some lessons to be learned, and they're giving us a chance to learn these lessons again. On a level 3 piece, I was very touched by some of the reflections between Naomi and Jim when they're apart from each other. I am not going to cry. They weren't that powerful, okay. Maybe.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
But the moment when Naomi gets on she's in the shell game, and as long as she's in the shell game and she focuses on her activity, she's okay. And as soon as she lets herself get away from her routine, she struggles. And I'm like, okay, I get that. I think everybody gets that. I think all of us have been in places where that's a big deal. But she doesn't necessarily talk very much about, she says she misses Jim, but she focuses on the work. But then the part where she says, where they were talking about the repurposed shuttle, the tea kettle that she would take down to the planet. And she says, "Oh, it would be the kind of thing that a miner would use to check out a claim, or a couple would take on an adventurous vacation." And they had been talking about taking their vacation, taking their retirement, and I felt this as I'm listening to it. I felt this weight of how much has been lost, how much they had missed from each other because they were not able to finish those plans. They were separated. Might as well have been, surviving widower, because they were both so cleanly separated from each other. And Jim, the same thing. Oh, Naomi would love all of this. Oh, but I have to remember, this is a prison, and Naomi would hate this if she were here because it's a prison, and it would be tolerable with Naomi. When Naomi was offered the opportunity, hey, you can go and live with Jim for the rest of your lives. Yeah, but it would be a prison. This fighting of, I want to be with the person that means the most to me, but I can't, was very powerful for me. And so as I was reading that, I found myself thinking about opportunities that are missed because we're so busy doing other things. I'm not going to say that it made me turn around and start being kinder and gentler with my family. I think I do a pretty good job of that anyway, but it made me much more thoughtful about it.
Okay.
So yeah, even in
I
all
liked
of this.
the moment that she gets the video from Jim that is sitting there. It's like specifically sent to the people in the Rosie because that's like only they would know how to access these video feeds. But there's a moment, and as she's watching Jim and everything he's saying to her, that she says that there's one thing that no matter how many people watch this and go through this and try and decipher if he's leaking any information or trying to whatever with the stuff Jim's putting out, that they have their own language, that they have been together that long where they don't need words, or they don't need, like, he can say something random in a certain tone and she can read between the lines. And so, I mean, when you realize how long they've actually been together, it is sweet seeing. And I think that's probably the one thing about this book that I've missed the most, and into the last book, is the connection between the crew.
Yeah.
It's lacking, obviously, greatly. Even with Alex and Bobby, who are together, their relationship is obviously strained.
Very different now that she's captain and he's pilot.
Well, and Alex has been fantastic because he's always understood his place in his family group. He knows he's the pilot. He's never wanted the leadership role. He's never wanted to be the one in command, in charge of everything. And he respects Bobby in that way, and he's happy for her and everything. And I think that she's the better choice.
Yes.
But I think at the same time, Alex is so used to having his family around to balance the strong personalities that make up his family. That that, like, at the very end, Bobby has found these antimatter bomb things and she's ready to use them. And Alex says, "Okay, if that's how you feel, great. But talk to Naomi first.
Let's run this past Naomi first."
And so I don't know how I would feel as Bobby going, well, why do I have to ask her for permission? And then it's okay with you because I asked her for permission. Like,
yeah.
But I think if they were on the Rosie, if this was their family dynamic, they would have talked about it anyway.
Yeah.
And battled it through and figured it out. But they all would have done it together, where now they've spent so many years apart that I don't know if I want to say that they're finding their place, like, on their own, because I don't necessarily see that either, but I don't know. It's just, I miss that family dynamic. I miss the relationships there and the closeness.
The interesting thing, when we left the last book, Naomi and Alex were on the planet. We pick up on this book. Nobody's on the planet.
Except the Rosie.
Except the Rosie, which I'm sure we're going back for. Because, it's the series.
Yeah.
But yeah, without them counterbalancing each other, there are some extremes of behavior and extremes of action that don't quite fit very well.
Because I think as a family group, like, especially Bobby and Naomi, I think they balance each other really well, because Naomi is always the one that's going to want to talk about things first.
Yeah.
What can we do? How can we work this through? How can we talk through the problems and our differences? Well, Bobby has made it very clear that she is a fight first, ask questions later type person. Like,
Ask questions, maybe.
yeah. If anyone's around after I'm done to ask questions of, then we'll ask the questions.
Yeah.
So, but and she knows that she's a fight first kind of person. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that when she
Yes.
beat up Amos. Like, that she's
Great callback to that, by the way. In his conversations with Teresa.
yes.
So I love that. That was, in fact, he had a couple of good lines. We'll get to him in a second, but
So I think it's just, I don't even know where I was going anymore now. What I was talking about.
Family.
But anyway.
It's about family.
It is. It's about family. Anyway, so Bobby and Naomi, I think they balance out each other. And now that they haven't been with each other, that they can converse in real time.
Yeah.
Because we know that conversations can be hours, if not
Days,
longer,
weeks, months.
in between when something gets first told to when whoever is supposed to hear it hears it. And so it's, I don't know, I'm struggling with that.
Especially because we had that moment earlier where they met for dinner, and they did have a little bit of an interaction between the two of them, and it was obvious. And Alex comes in and looks at him and is like, "Oh crap!
Yeah,
mom and mom have been fighting again." You know, and he's real good as long as everybody's together, because he can kind of move people in the right spot so that they do what needs to be done to keep everybody on even keel. It's levels of difficulty different now.
well, and Bobby's been given kind of the bad hand in all of this. Like, she was originally given the Rosie, and she was going to captain the Rosie, and then that kind of got pulled out from under her, and like, then she was like, okay, well, let's do this with the rebellion. And then Jim shows up, and like, she's constantly being handed things and then being like, okay, just kidding. Someone else is going to take charge. And I kind of feel like that's her back, like her issues with Alex are still her trying to be like, no, I'm captain now.
I'm in charge.
I'm in charge. This is going to be my way kind of thing, and trying to assert her dominance over the situation.
Yeah.
Where Alex is still trying to be like, but we're a family and we need to talk about this as a family. And so anyway, kind of Amos.
Let's hope that Bobby doesn't decide she has to have a fight with Alex, because Alex is not going to survive the same way
Alex
Amos would.
won't win anyway.
I feel like it's become pretty clear that she's in charge now, though, with all the plans that have been made and everything, and how she's taking control of things.
There's a changing of the guard going on, and that's hard.
Yeah.
When the old guard is got to be transitioned out, and Alex, I think, is aware that he is in a place that he needs to be transitioned out, but he can't let go.
They've talked a lot about that, Alex and Bobby, especially in Alex's chapters, where he's like, what are we fighting for? There's been a lot of conversations, and it got me thinking, listening to some of their conversations, going, is the dictator really all that bad? Like, what about these people that maybe don't want to be saved, or don't want like the rebellion to win kind of thing?
It's always the way it goes.
But so just listening, because that's Alex's point, is that we're getting old. We have this fight because we've been there. This new generation, these up and coming kids, didn't fight the same fight we did, and they don't understand. And who's going to take over the rebellion when we're done? Because they don't have the same passion and drive that we do to fight this fight. And I think that was a good point that Alex made. Is like, well, what does winning look like?
Yeah.
What's the end goal? And Bobby's just like, we just fight until we die. And I'm like, oh, well, that sounds like fun.
Sounds a little familiar right now.
Sounds like a warrior. Well, here was one of the questions I wrote down, since we're talking about that a little bit, is when does the Princess of Freehold inevitably hostilely try to take over the Gathering Storm? Because it feels like that's coming. I feel like she's a mutiny looking for a ship to happen on, to me.
I don't know.
I don't know if it happens or not. I just saying that if it were to happen, she feels like she would be the leader of it.
Yeah, and I think also that that's another place where it's who's gonna, is Bobby gonna wipe the floor with her, or are they gonna wipe the floor with each other?
Yeah.
Bobby kind of mentions, well, she's pretty tough. She actually might step into these shoes in a little while, but not today. And I wonder if that's gonna happen.
Well, it's all of this leads to something that I don't know about, but I got the feeling of when we had the Naomi and Alex and Bobby dinner, and they were separating. It felt very much like this is the last time these three are seeing each other.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Yeah.
And that worries me just a bit. And then with Freehold lady, what's her name? I'm just going to keep calling her the Princess of Freehold. I don't remember her name.
That's right.
But
we'll all remember it when we turn off the recording.
Yeah, I know. The way that she's just champing for a fight, I feel like and maybe that doesn't go sideways. Maybe she just uses her ready for a fight attitude to contribute to something. Because fight's coming. They're going for the Tempest with the antimatter bombs. So,
well, and Bobby is not going to be able to talk to Naomi about it because gay travel and gay communication is gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's happening basically. There's no talking to Naomi before we go fighting.
We're just going to go fight.
We're just going to go fight. That's happening now.
Well, and I think the other thing that's the other piece that I have a question about, and I guess I didn't catch this until the second time listening through the interlude. What's the doctor's name?
Cortázar.
Cortázar, something like that.
It's like that.
Yeah, something like that. Cortázar, I think it is. Where Holden says Cortázar's plan to vivisect Duarte's daughter.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, he's just itching. He's just itching to cut her to pieces, isn't he? I have the feeling like he's going to be
the mad scientist.
Yeah, he's going to be the bad guy in this.
He is the mad scientist, but it made me start wondering. We've never seen Teresa's mother.
Right, because she died when she was a baby or whatever.
That's what we're being told.
Okay.
That's what Teresa's been told, and that's the only point of view we get.
I'm wondering if there's some kind of immaculate creation within the proto-molecule pens. Okay, I know that sounds just horrible, but I wonder if that's why he's so curious and why he wants to do this vivisection, is because there's something different about her that we and maybe I'm wrong. Well, not going to be the first time I'm wrong.
There's an entire Jim mentions about that eerie smile that the doctor has, that he seems that after Duarte ended up in his comatose
his
position,
catatonic state,
whatever happened to him, that the doctor seems pretty pleased about it. That creepy kind of pleased about it. Not
this is exciting to see what kind of reaction he's having and what it means. Also, I think he's excited about the fact that the safeguards are taken off and he can do whatever he wants now.
Yeah, he doesn't have to run anything past Duarte.
Well, and he's like, well, I don't know. I've only had one test subject to run things on, so I don't know what's going on. If you let me run more tests, and you're like, no, let's not let him do that.
I know.
But no one's who's going to stop him now.
Yeah,
he's going to be the Dr. Frankenstein in all of this. And I think he's looking forward to getting Teresa under the knife and seeing what he can inject her with and such.
Until Jim rescues
her with Timothy. Oh, that reminds me. Did you catch this in her conversations with Amos, where she's like, what does he say? You got to have security. Why everything's safe? I don't know. Somebody could try to sneak a thermonuclear bomb in your city. Oh, really, Amos? Could somebody try to do that? Could
that was funny. That was, just throwing it out there. Well, you never know, and it felt very much like a well, Peaches, you never know.
I think that's one thing that I might have really liked about all of this is that Amos seems to have found a hole filler for his heart with Teresa.
Yeah.
Where
she's his new Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, that Clarissa left. That I think it's good for him to have someone innocent to keep an eye on him.
Maybe we find out that the reason that mission hasn't gone off is partly because he met Teresa.
Maybe.
And he's trying to figure out how to make that work.
The other thing that caught me in their conversations is he kept talking about how she would mention something frustrating about Jim, and he'd say, "Oh, your father's killed way more people than Cap." And she's like, "Why do you keep calling him Cap?" "'Cause he's a captain." "Well, he's not your captain." "Oh yeah." "I guess he's not." All of a sudden, he's hit with this realization that I'm a free agent, kinda.
Yeah, kinda.
But he's still Cap. He's still family.
Still James Holden's private killer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's still the reality, even if Avasarala isn't there to call it that. Did you guys? I'm curious. We haven't asked this question yet. What was your reaction when Avasarala died? Was it a? Well, yeah, it's about time, or was it a? Oh. No reaction.
I'm pretty sure I don't know. It was more of it's about time. It was more not necessarily like that attitude, like, well, it's about time. It was more of just that.
It makes sense.
Yeah. I was like, okay, yeah. After everything that happened in the last book and how frail they kept pointing out she was.
Yeah.
Right.
It was kind of just like, oh yeah, it makes sense. This is how this book should have started. I wasn't upset about it. I wasn't really sad about it. Like.
And I think I had both reactions. My first one was, oh, then it was, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about time.
I think I was the same. I may have shed a single tear at that moment in time, but I think it was because I was on a walk and it was cold. But Jim's conversation with her granddaughter, was pretty interesting when she's like, "Oh yeah, I've known my whole life that I never say anything that anybody really wants to hear when people are listening, and people are always listening." Some really interesting kind of interplay between the two of them, and I found myself thinking, man, I hope they get to talk together a little bit more. Haven't had that yet, but it's one of those things I'd like to hear the two of them spar.
Yeah.
Especially because all of the beat downs that he'd ever received from Avasarala, maybe to be a chance for him to provide one of his own.
Did you find it interesting or just kind of a passing thing that Kamina Drummer is in this for all of about 5 seconds? There at the very beginning, she and Jim meet at the memorial for Avasarala, and that's it. She's gone.
They both mentioned the fact that we're the oddities. They keep us around because they need to look good.
That's good because I don't even remember her being mentioned. So that's how I felt about that.
There you go.
Well, again, it goes along with this idea of I guess on a lot of levels, it's a changing of the guard. And they need to keep her around for appearances, but it's going elsewhere. The train's moving, but the dogs are barking. That's pretty much all there is to it. So we kind of have a feeling that we get to the second half of this book, and do we think there's going to be some action finally? I mean, we're probably going to get the attack on the other ship with the antimatter bombs.
I think that we get the attack. Well, I think we get the attack on the Tempest quickly. I think that's going to happen within like the first. How many chapters do we have? We basically have 25 chapters left, something like that. And I bet within the first 5 chapters of the second part, we get the attack on the Tempest. I think that's one of the things that sets up the rest of the action for the second half of the book.
And of course, it's an antimatter bomb.
I'm just going to put out there that I don't think they're going to attack the Tempest.
Okay.
I don't even know if I actually feel that way.
You think that Alex is going to convince her not to attack right now?
I think Bobby is going to have that touch of conscience and be like, I can't kill this many people for no real reason.
Okay. See, and I'm having the feeling that if they do use of the antimatter bomb, is going to trigger another response from the protomolecule eaters.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think we're setting up a real conflict between, and I don't think the protomolecule eaters are still here either. I think the protomolecule eaters and the protomolecule makers are long gone. It's like kids finding a minefield and kicking a soccer ball around in it and saying, "Hey, we didn't know." But I think that there's automatic responses that are going to start going off in all of these other systems that are going to play havoc with everybody around them.
Oh.
And I think we're not done with non-localized, non-propagating gravitational and time-space continuum effects. So I just love that part.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other predictions that we've got?
Here was a question from Discord also, and I was wondering we're not through book 8 yet, but do you see any of these characters that you think play a pivotal role in book 9?
Teresa.
I think Teresa's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
I think Teresa's a big one. I think Cortazar is a big one. I think he becomes, by the end of this book, I think he becomes the chief antagonist, the one who's really driving let's see how much of this protomolecule we can turn ourselves into, because it's the wave of the future, man, or whatever. His true mad scientist comes out, and I think he becomes the main antagonist of book 9.
I think somewhere along the end, towards the end of this book, there has to be, either at the end of this book or the beginning of the next book, some sort of understanding with the Laconians as a whole. What that looks like, I really don't know, but there has to be some kind of coming together of the universe if the protomolecule killer or whatever is going to be like the big bad at the end of.
Yeah.
Because right now I think the fact that they're so disjointed with the rebellion and everything, like something has to happen with the rebellion has to win, or something has to happen if they're going to be able to defeat the Doctor, who I really do think is going to end up coming, like he's going to have the protomolecule and he's going to be the one driving that idea. Yeah. But something has to happen, whether that's at the end of this book, beginning of the next book. The rebellion has to be solved. In my mind,
I think that along with that, I think Duarte is going to come out of his coma and realize that he is the only one that can stop the protomolecule eaters by sacrificing himself in some way, shape, or form.
Ooh,
a good one. I'm going on record saying I kind of see that one coming.
I had one of three ways.
By the way, I have been accurate in one of the 762 predictions that I've ever made. So chances for this one.
You are really on a roll. You're statistically, your chances are high, actually.
I feel like Duarte could go one of three ways, and I'm not sure which. He can either wake up and say, I've seen the light and had a change of heart, and we need to stop this madness, and this is how we do it. Or he wakes up and says, I have seen the light, and we have to continue down this road because it's the only way that we survive. Or he doesn't wake up at all, and Cortazar figures out some way to kill him and basically takes over.
I think all of those could be possible. I think it'll be fun to see which one winds up being it.
I think it's going to be one of those three things, though. I also think that Jim, not directly, like literally, but basically in his figurative Jim way, figures out as the ultimate Boy Scout and as the galaxy's negotiator, figures out a way to broker peace between the monster and humanity. And I think that he uses Miller to do it. I think Miller makes a comeback. The visage of Miller, that somebody like the monster taking the Miller skin suit or whatever they use. You know what I'm talking about. They take the
hallucination he had when the protomolecule was living in his head or whatever.
Using the embodiment of Miller, they come back and he basically negotiates with Miller, and I think Miller makes a comeback.
Corners and doors.
Yeah,
man.
doors and corners, man.
Okay.
And I've got one more. I don't want to say it because I don't want it to be true, but I think it wouldn't surprise me if in this book there isn't one more significant death.
I think you and I are thinking the same one.
I don't want to say it though.
I don't either.
I'm not going to say
either. And I think it happens to set up another character escaping death.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. You know where we're going with that, right?
Crap.
I
She's
don't
read
know.
ahead. She's
No,
got.
I have not. I stopped at the after I finished the interlude today, and I have not listened. I haven't read anything. I haven't looked up. I haven't had time. So
Well, some of our listeners probably know, and they're throwing their hands in the air saying, "You guys are so stupid."
but there's a good chance I might go home and look it up just to find out.
There you go.
Well,
There you
there's
go.
a good chance that I'm going to go home and on the way home start reading part 2 because I'm actually invested now.
I could care less about spoilers. So if I find out someone died, I'd be like, sweet, now I'm prepared. So
There you go.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we have another half a book to go and a book after that.
yay!
Ken, Stephanie, always delightful to have you guys.
I love you,
Love
Steph.
working with you guys.